call to order the Town of McCandless agenda for agenda review meeting, August 19th, 2019. We are going to begin by conducting candidate interviews to fill a vacant term for a position of the second alternate on the zoning hearing board and for a vacant position on the personnel board. And the first person is Joseph Aller, is that right? Did I say that right?
Euler.
It's not here.
I think it's Euler, but that's, I'm not an expert.
Okay, was he number one?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Okay. Okay, all right, then how about Matthew Shipley?
Well, not for the personnel board.
Right, yeah, I said both of them,
Oh, okay.
so if the one is not here, then it would be the next,
Okay.
we'll just go to the next person, don't you
He's
think?
got 10 minutes to get here.
Which one are you doing? For the, yeah, personnel?
Personnel.
Yeah.
You want him up?
Yes, please. Up here?
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hello?
So the way this goes is that we have your resume here that you sent us and all the information that you sent to us. So, if you have something on top of that that you want to add, something, short that isn't in here that you'd like us to know, feel free to, mention that, or otherwise we'll go around the table and each council person will see if they have a question for you.
Yes, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Greg?
Yeah.
Now let me just say this, because we did go out of order here for a second, that he's applying for the personnel board, just so
Right.
there's no one confused. We're a little out of order, just to keep our time.
Matt, you're a retired Navy SEAL commander, 27 years, according to your resume, and a U.S. Naval Academy graduate. How was that Navy SEAL experience?
How was it?
Yeah,
It was wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah, I wish I could do it over again.
okay.
Can't tell you, Greg.
Well, he could tell you,
He would
he'd
have
have
to
to
kill
kill
me.
me.
I
Yeah.
know.
I have to kill you.
So,
I think there's been enough of that going on in our country. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
His term's almost up.
How do you feel that experience would be relevant to a position on the personnel board?
Well, I was the commanding officer, so Unit 18 is my last command. Among other leadership positions, I was the executive officer of SEAL Team 3 in Fallujah, Iraq. Are you familiar with Chris Kyle and American Sniper?
Yeah,
I was his executive officer.
Oh, you were?
Third deployment. Oh, his third deployment over there, and just dealing with people, evaluating them, and assessing their capabilities is something I've done my entire career.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mr. Shipley, your credentials are impeccable. I'm just curious what particular interest you have in serving on the personnel board.
Civic duty, more or less, and I've always wanted to come to understand our police force a little bit better. I think I had something to offer them.
Excellent. Thanks. I have no further questions.
Matt, what are some key issues do you think that this board would have to face?
Key issues this board would have to face. I don't know what this board would have to face. The way I looked at this situation is that you would give me, the board would give me the criteria of what they're looking for in their candidates, and
As in the council?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And the council would give the board. I'm messing up the terms, but the criteria for the candidates, and then we would evaluate them and pass the best candidates on to you.
Okay, thank you.
Commander Shipley, of course, we know each other in other contexts. What do you perceive as if you have any perceptions in advance of the difficulties or issues that you would face as a person at a personnel board?
What difficulties would?
Yeah, I mean, just not difficulties so much. Do you have any concepts in advance of what you might be doing in a personnel board context?
I imagine that what I would be doing in the personnel board context would be interviewing the candidates for the police force and determining if they were qualified or not to join the police force. I don't foresee any big problems. Like I said, I've done that my entire career. I've had to evaluate my SEALs and put them in, and rank them in order, and tell them to their face, hey, this is where I hold you, and this is why I hold you here.
I don't have anything else. It's good to see you, and congratulations on the wonderful service record that you have.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
I'd like to thank you for your service to our country. And what do you see as a couple of the most important characteristics when you're looking at officers? What really stands out to you as being important?
Well, every context is important. For a SEAL, are you talking about a police officer?
Right, and that's primarily what this,
Absolutely, and that's why I said that I would look to this council to provide the criteria. But for me, integrity is one of the biggest things, that you say what you mean and you mean what you say, and you execute it accordingly.
okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions by anyone? Okay, thank you so much for
Thank you.
applying, very nice to meet you.
Hey, Matt.
See you, sir. Matt, you don't have to walk well over
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for coming in.
You are.
Has Joe arrived?
Nobody's entered since I've been here.
Okay. All right.
She's, they're checking out there.
Maybe.
Is there anyone out there, Bruce? Is Joe out there? Oh, okay, okay. Okay, so let's review the tentative business meeting agenda.
Is Carolyn coming? She's at the
No.
meeting. Okay.
He's in South Carolina, I think.
Okay. Invocation by Councilman Mertz with Pledge of Allegiance. Approval of the minutes. You've got a nice big fat packet of minutes. Did you see the?
Yes.
Okay, so I sent one thing in there. If you have any comments or changes on any of those minutes, we'll have announcements. We're going to begin our recognition program, starting with the AAUW in the North Hills Pittsburgh branch, and the North Hills Art Center, which is where we held our recyclable art show these last couple weeks. Next, the report from committees, finance.
there.
Yes?
Madam President,
Yes?
just, did we set upon a methodology for us to follow in identifying potential people or groups to be recognized?
No, we're still working on that policy. At this point, I would just suggest that if any council members have an idea of an organization that you believe should be recognized for the work that they've done,
Excuse me.
please let me know, and I can, put a certificate together for them, in terms of,
But
what they've
it
done
will-
and why.
the people that will be, I do think that's a very positive thing to do, to identify in advance what the criteria is, albeit it's probably fairly general, I would think. And then who's eligible and so forth. But spell it out in some detail. We have these nominations right here, and I think most people have some general idea of what would be the basis for recognizing a computer,
Yeah.
but it is an organization, by the way, not an individual. It does say community organization. Did I misspoke earlier when I spoke about having an individual
Well, no,
recognized?
I mean, I think it could be completely appropriate, and I'll just use this as an example. Somebody who's earned their Eagle Scout certification, you may want to honor them. I think that's completely appropriate. They've done something to benefit the community, and they should be recognized.
So we would just ask them to send a representative
They
for
could-
us to present.
If it's an organization, they could, but I think somebody who has made a contribution, or some organization that's made a contribution to the community, we can write something up based on what we believe that contribution to be, and then honor them at the meeting.
give them a certificate of recognition.
Yeah, and we're working on some drafts
Right,
that we'll
yeah.
have out to.
Okay. And just one more quick question, just as we deliberate on this. There's no limit, I mean, I don't think you'd want to have 10 people nominated in one meeting, but theoretically, could you do that? You could, or is it only, is there any number of people that?
You tell me how
Well,
many you
that's-
want
I think
to.
we gotta think about that kind of,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
I'm sure that'll come out in the discussions
Yeah.
that follow.
Is there any concern about these two groups? Is everybody okay with these two? To go ahead with them?
Are we going with the Art Center because of what they're doing with the recycle things?
Right, because of how much they helped us with that.
I am okay with them as
Okay.
nominated.
Okay, all right, thank you. Finance and personnel would be to approve the checklist. Anyone has any concerns with that? Move to authorize the settlement for Westview Water Authority. Do we need to meet an executive session with
Well,
that, or is everybody okay with what they
Gavin
were?
expects to meet an executive session at 7:15 on
Okay, so that,
next Monday.
so that
That's
needs
not
to be on here
7:15.
too. So we need to put that as number real one. It should be short, and it should be on that settlement
Yes.
at 7:15, okay? Zoning will, I'd like to review these,
Yeah,
do you wanna review, I'd like to review these changes tonight
right,
instead, and then, so maybe we can get this
yeah, right.
solved, so maybe we can, I'd like to change this, if we can come to a settlement on the comprehensive plan, to change this to vote for the implementable comprehensive plan. So let's just keep a little question mark by that one, if we can all come to some kind of terms on that. Move to appoint the second alternate for the zoning hearing board. Unless the person tonight just comes in really late and we want to go ahead and interview him, we have the two people who applied last week. And then Greg, as we've done in the past, since that's your liaison to that, you can make that nomination. I think that's kind of how we've been doing it.
Okay.
Move to accept, let me make sure I got that. Move to accept the resignation of,
Wait a second, are we going to discuss the implemental comprehensive plan once we get through this agenda, or where are we?
you want to
There's
do it now, or
we
do you
have the
want
changes.
to, or do you want to put it on? We can do it, I mean, we
Yeah.
can do it now. You want to just do it now?
Yeah,
Okay, let's do it now.
I mean.
Might as well, since Bruce is sitting there.
Yeah,
He came up like he's ready.
Yeah.
He's ready.
Teed up, yeah.
Okay,
I
okay.
thought there was a tea call there. I wasn't
Okay,
sure.
I mean-
all right. That's fine. I was gonna come back to it once we got through the business meeting, but it's fine like that. That's good.
Okay, after our last meeting, suggestion was that Bill and I get together and come up with some new wording. And what happened was Bill and I had some discussions. Steve had some ideas about just changing will to may, but what I did instead of that was just put qualifying statements. And apparently, after talking to Greg a little bit ago, one of my qualifying statements wasn't qualifying enough. So Greg might have some new wording on the very
Yeah.
first thing that I have there.
Yeah, it's at the bottom of page 9. The report appendices include useful supporting documentation, useful supporting information, and guidance documents. As with the main report, these recommendations that may be implemented, and I would just add, not put before the period, I would add, to the extent they do not conflict with the changes made by the report itself. So to the extent
Do not conflict with
they
the,
do not conflict with the changes made to the report itself.
And the reason for Greg saying that is you go through the report, some of the
Is
links,
that the appendix or the main one?
it's the appendix.
Okay, I'm trying to look on.
So,
page
no,
nine.
the comment is in the main report, very.
It's on the, it's on the attachment to these papers, the
Okay,
agenda.
I've got everything. I'm just trying to.
No,
figure out where you are.
it's, I'm looking, get your agenda.
These are your changes.
No.
What page, is it 9?
Page 9, yeah.
Oh, 9 of
Yeah,
the
it's
agenda.
Yeah,
It's the new page 9.
Okay.
Well, page 9 of the thing, but it's
I see.
also,
Okay, I was looking here for
Okay.
page 9.
okay. And just at the end,
The changes in the report, in the basic, in the
Report itself.
report itself.
yeah, to the extent they do not conflict with the changes made in the report itself, okay?
Everybody okay with that? I think
Okay.
it's saying just more of what we've been saying, right? Do we need to say it anywhere else?
No, that was it. And I didn't have anything,
I can go through them, I'll be
Okay,
very
okay.
quick. So on the next one, the pages changed, we reorganized a lot of things as we're doing, I didn't go through, I'm not gonna go through all the reorganization, but I will go, so the pages don't necessarily match up with the pages in your original report. But anyways, on the very next page, what we added, and this was a comment that seemed to be a lot of you had, on page 10, it is understood that the town has finite resources and has responsibilities for use of those resources. Being good stewards of those finite resources, town council must prioritize the action steps in this plan within the larger budgetary context. Bob helped a lot write that one. On the next page, page 18 was the next one, initial to-do list. We just said this list suggests what's to do. It is not necessarily a priority, but it's a suggestion of what to do. And carrying that through on page 20, with active transportation, since we are, it seems as though what's falling in place more quickly is Babcock Boulevard. It seems to be coming together pretty good at the moment. But anyways, we eliminated the strategy steps and emphasized that these are not in a priority order. It's like whatever, we come up with some, these are not in order of priority. The priorities are to be treated equally, and implementation will be opportunistic based on future development and availability of grants. Someone pointed out that among all of our resources, we didn't have impacts, so we added impacts. And we emphasized Allegheny County and North Park. There are a lot of programs, a lot of summer programs in North Park that aren't in here necessarily, although we do reference North Park. We just wanted to emphasize that North Park has a lot of items. And we added that back in on page 52. Next one is page 57.
Before you get to that, I think I may have picked up a typo here. On page.
It's hard to tell with the orange highlight
Yeah,
on the
I
orange
know, wasn't
background.
that, what am I gonna do when it's brown? You know, it's like yellow didn't work. I didn't know what to do.
That's really the same problem I have, Steve. But on the very first line there, here's also details of such blah, blah, blah. These are not in order of I think you mean to say a priority there, but.
well, what page
It
are
says
we?
priority, it just kind of, it just kind of comes down to
Well,
here.
only.
No, it actually says org.
I think that's an
It says
O-R-I-T-Y.
priority, yeah, it just, you can't see it, you can't read it.
It's there.
That darn,
See, there's
whoever
pri,
did that
there's
word-
already.
I don't know who
Oh,
come up
that's
with
two
that
words,
word.
pri- Priority
Oh,
with a hyphen.
That's not only, that's.
It's an ordy.
Ordy. The orange, thank you for the orange ink. That way it's almost impossible to read.
We'll buy you a blue one.
I could have used blue, I never
Put-
thought of the blue.
Put it on the
Okay,
budget.
okay, I don't have anything on that. Go ahead. Please proceed.
Jumping ahead to page 57, I think most of this, this was already in there. We just wanted to point out, because we're gonna reference back to this in the appendix, we reference back to this. It says that if the town concludes there are no gaps in residence was, there was a typo on residence, so what it's saying, it has a lot of ifs. If the town concludes there are no gaps and go through that whole process, this is a programming decision point. This was already in there. And the reason I highlighted it is we reference back to it later on in the appendix, just to make it clear. And we added in on page 58, if additional space is needed, then proceed with the next steps. Review, and then it says review and consider space needs.
There's a typo there.
Uh-oh, where at?
Instead of
Nope.
proceed, then proceed.
Oh,
Then proceed.
Oh, then proceed.
Mr. Nan.
Bob, what are you picking up there, please?
It's on the
Page 58,
Then proceed.
after comma,
Where it says the proceed, it should
Yeah.
be then,
yeah.
then, THEN.
Yep. Or the word could be completely deleted.
And Tricia found a typo in my typo that I had. I corrected one and left the other one there. Typo on page 64 was corrected. Page 65, we added, I just want to pass this out.
65.
Here we go.
I have a 65.
I know. There you go. Sorry, I forgot to put that, I forgot to go out all the pages when I was going over it with Patrick, I used this page. So the orange highlighted area, which is very clear on this page, for those of you who may not like the orange, says that we're protecting the sole working farm in town by keeping it an ag security area as appropriate. The reason I put as appropriate is you need 10 acres, 10 contiguous acres. There are parts of Eichner's farm which aren't contiguous and don't apply to this, but we do have them in an ag security area. So it's good that we have that in there. That actually fits in very well with our sustainability project that our intern's been working on all summer long. So the next one, page 66, we did some subheadings under promoting restoration of land and water. One is consider the use of low impact development. That also is a sustainability, in our sustainability projects. And we also, this was brought up at the last meeting, enhance existing stormwater facilities where practical by increasing capacity, rate control, and water quality. So we've added that in a couple of places.
I assume the crucifix is a T on the,
Yeah, we, oh, did you get that one?
it's a huge
I did too.
crucifix, yeah.
Oh,
I thought
this,
I
right?
thought it was
Yeah.
an axe.
I thought it was the axe. Wait a minute, I'm the one that gets the axe
Hey.
here.
Hey,
I
you're
didn't
the
know I
one that
sent
brings
that
that
one
up
to
all
you.
the time. Don't do
Well,
that.
when
Next.
the crucifix.
That got fixed, but I missed the P there, it's impact. Thanks, Tricia. Next one, we added in community activities. This addendum provides guidance that the town may consider as part of an ongoing discussion about community activities, and we keep adding. And then we go back, we reference back to, this is actually in the appendix and from the appendix.
What is he on 110?
So then we reference back to page 57 and 58, where at that decision point.
127.
So, and we added in the stormwater management that we changed last week, we added another sentence at the end. It says, as part of the stormwater facility inspection process, determination is made as to whether the facility will accommodate additional volume, rate control, and water quality improvements. And in fact, we are starting that discussion already. Met with the stormwater engineer today and said, so from now on, we're going to start that discussion at our next engineering meeting. So that's it. And so we'll add Greg's comment. We'll pick up some of the, hopefully that's, Bill, I appreciate your help on that. Bob, appreciate your wording. Sandy had some good wording that she helped out with. And Tricia, thanks for your comments.
So Greg said that he wasn't able to find the appendix on the website for the public. Is that on there?
It should be, yeah, we put them both on.
Well, I didn't realize, I thought the appendix was, say, one sole appendix, so I didn't see that it was all the minutes for everything, so it may have been on there.
Okay, okay.
And anyhow, I think this language controls and would take care of it.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure
So-
that everything was on there,
So
so the
one-
public could see everything.
Once we make these changes,
Mhm.
we're gonna redo the whole thing anyways and
Okay.
and put the entire thing on. And we'll,
With the final changes.
the final changes, and gonna try to, I have the 11 by 17 documents, so Sandy and I are gonna try to assemble all that and then make one large printout for everybody, so we have a printed version of it
Okay, perfect.
for the meeting.
So are we happy with the changes? Do we think this is ready for a vote at next week's meeting?
I certainly appreciate council's patience in hearing me out and Bruce working to add the clarifying language in it. So I support all the hard work that the steering committee did here, and I'm prepared to support it.
And the appendix did come up for me.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good.
I found it there as well.
Okay.
I am as well, just to proceed. there's never a status of perfection, but I think we've made really certainly a good big effort to tweak this most recently last week, and I think we ought to just call it a day with this one.
You know, what we did last week was a continuation of what we
Yeah,
had been
I
doing all
understand.
along with
Yeah.
the steering committee.
It wasn't-
We had those same types of discussions regularly, and we left with, Kim loved me saying this after every meeting, or during every meeting, 3 or 4, 5, 6 times.
Right.
Do we have consensus?
We'd like as many people as possible to be happy and supportive of this
And
plan.
I like the
of course.
idea of changing the will to may. That makes me feel better.
Thank you.
Okay, all right,
So that
then,
will become,
that will be an
Number
agenda
one.
to adopt. Okay,
Okay, thank you, everybody, I
Thank you,
sure
Bruce.
appreciate it.
thank
Okay,
you.
thanks a lot, Bruce.
No,
Thank
we
you for your
appreciate
work.
it. You worked
Did we
really,
take action
really
on this
hard
just
on
now, or
this.
we're going to next week?
we will take action.
It'll be
week.
voted on
This-
next week.
Yeah,
week.
this is,
That's fine.
this.
Yeah, I understand that, I figured that was the case.
Okay, see y'all.
Thanks again, Bruce.
Number 3 on the zoning committee is accepting resignation from Chuck Parker on the Uniform Construction and Maintenance Appeals Board. And once we accept that, we are going to go ahead and post all the upcoming positions that are coming up for all the meetings, and then start trying to interview them in clumps, so we can get some things appointed. And be ready to go, so we're not doing everything at the last minute. So we'll put all those out together. Public safety, we are going to swear in a new officer, Sean Davis. We're going to move to adopt an ordinance about keeping and harboring dogs, the nuisance ordinance. Steve, do you want to discuss that?
Oh, it's certainly not a big favorite amongst the people in the town. 87% seem to think that this is way overkill between the speed of which the fines escalate and the fact that they don't ever diminish. You know, if you had a bad dog for a year and you had multiple problems, and you end up having to get rid of your family pet, and then 5 years later you get a new pet, the first instance is a $500 fine. The way this is worded, it doesn't reset. The fines never reset back to a normal thing. So if you have a bad dog that takes you months to get under control, or you finally have to get rid of it, since you guys have decided not to reset the fines, if you get another dog in 4 or 5 or even 10 years, and that dog has one instance, it's an automatic $500 fine. If you've reached that first 6, it is because of the no reset policy. And most people thought that the 6 incidents up to $500. I mean, this potentially, and I don't think that it would ever get to the most extreme possible. This is potentially $360,000 a year worth of fines because somebody doesn't like your dog. That's a lot. This is potentially $1,750 in the first week if somebody doesn't like your dog. If the officers decide to make a point of it every single time they get called out, and the neighbor calls every week.
Do we have a draft attached to this? I know we've seen it multiple
there it
times.
is, yeah.
but Which one
It
is
was
it?
in a separate, there it is.
Yeah, I see it. It's loose, I got you right.
I think our officers are pretty smart, and I
I think
think
they
they
are
know
too,
what
but-
a nuisance pet would be, as opposed to a inappropriate report by a neighbor. I think, if you had a video in the middle of the night of a dog that's barking at 2 a.m., I think that would have some weight, as opposed to just saying, this dog barks all the time. I think our police officers and our magistrate use their judgment to decide these fines, and it's.
And that's our
I
current
don't say
officers and our
anyone-
current magistrate. However, back 20 years ago, I had a woman who called every time I lit the grill. Every single time. And the police actually, after the 30th or 40th time that year, threatened me that if they had to keep getting phone calls to come out, they were going to fine me. Because I cooked that on my grill, and the lady behind me didn't like that. She considered that an open flame.
On your grill?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't even mean
And the
that-
police had to keep showing up at the house.
So how did you get it settled?
She died.
Sorry I asked.
Yeah.
All right, so, Steve, has given his opinion on this. Where was that 85%? Where did that 85%
I did it
come
on,
from?
I asked on the open discussion page
Okay,
what
so-
people thought, and I counted up the ones who were in disagreement and the ones that were not.
Okay, so that wasn't clear. It's not really 85% of the whole town. It's 85% of the survey you
Right,
took on
and
your
of the
website.
ones who, well, not
Okay.
my site, but the,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, because it was like all of McCandless, I think maybe is how that was said.
Well, I have some sympathy for the point that Steve has made, that if dog A is the offending creature, that if it's, is the dog sort of being penalized or subject to the penalty? I mean, if that dog's no longer around and 3 years later, as in your example, or whatever time,
well, we're not time.
another dog in the family, associated with that family, does something, should the penalty be escalated then?
Right, I think there should be a reset. I personally think there should be a reset. I was okay with the fine.
But did you understand my question, Steve?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily even know that, to me, the way this reads, if you have 10 dogs, and I certainly agree that something should be done if you have 10 dogs that are consecutively getting out, but to me what this reads is if you have 10 dogs and dog A gets out Monday and dog B gets out Tuesday and dog C gets out Wednesday and dog D gets out Thursday, by Saturday you're going to have paid the maximum amount of, you're up to the $500. And to me, it may have only been one or a different dog each time. I don't know. I don't know how many
That is
people
something
have
that-
10 dogs.
That Gavin and I had discussed during the drafting process is, would there be a way to differentiate between like offending pets, but we just thought it could get too complicated for police and for code enforcement to be trying to track, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
Fido versus.
The offender is not the dog, it's the dog owner.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So if
yeah.
the dog has 10 naughty, if the dog owner has 10 naughty dogs that they cannot control and 10 dogs that are a nuisance, it's against the owner, it's not against the
Absolutely.
dogs. Dogs
Right.
aren't,
I think this was geared
Right,
because of that
exactly.
family that had all those.
Right. This is
20 dogs.
and that's what a lot of people pointed out. A lot of people pointed out there's 28,000 people being, you know, getting an ordinance passed against them because of one person. I mean, I understand that there are certain dogs that are a problem, but we have a dog down the street that my son has personally caught at least 20 times. And I've never heard anyone complain about the dog.
What do you mean caught? Because it's running
It
loose?
runs loose. It runs away. And I know these people put it on chains. I've seen them put it on chains. And he's caught them with the chain broken. And it's not a big dog. I don't know. I would guess it's 50 pounds, but it's a small-ish dog.
well, you're not required to call if something is a
Right, but if the
nuisance.
next door neighbor is that type of person,
Then you need to keep your dog restrained on your property. That's what this is about. Having dogs turned loose intentionally to leave a property to chase people into their own homes.
this is the only time in McCandless I've ever heard that happen. So we're talking about
I
one
have
woman.
been chased into my house
Somebody
by
turned
my
a dog. You
neighbor's
just said
dog.
somebody turned a dog loose to chase someone to their own property.
They broke out of their fence.
Okay, well that's
But
different.
my point is, now I didn't call that in as a nuisance. I talked to my neighbor and said they need their battery redone on there. But it was very scary to me. It was a big dog. I was out with my little dog. But if it continually happened, so it does happen, but sometimes people aren't always reporting it. But if that happened repeatedly, then I think that he needs an accelerating fine. You know,
And
for that.
nobody is suggesting that there shouldn't be an accelerating fine. A lot of people considered the problem of $50, $100, $200, $300, $400, $500, and 6 incidents later you've paid whatever, $1,750 if that happens in a week.
So what you're saying is you want it to end at the end of each year?
I would like to see it, not the end of each year necessarily, because what happens if the dog attacks someone on the December 31st? I would say like a driver's license a year after the incident. So if the last incident with an animal was on whichever day, Halloween, then Halloween the following year, that would be wiped clean and it would start back over at whatever the minimum. This fine's 50. I don't have a problem with 50. Like I said, there were people who mentioned it was a pretty steep escalating fine, so maybe instead of going,
But we did that on purpose though, because it was 25 before and it didn't affect anyone.
right, and it still wouldn't affect some people. There are people that can afford a $50 or even a $500 fine. But there are also people who, if their dog got loose 3 times in a week, may not be able to afford to pay the rent because of it.
But if it got loosened 3 times in a week, then the owner has a problem. They need to
You know,
control the dog.
I understand that, but this particular person, the reason we wrote this, from what her neighbors have said, if we would have made this a $50 fine with $100 second term, $150 the third, or $200 the fourth, $250 the fifth, she would have still been paying the maximum penalty by the end of the month from the way the neighbors talked.
I guess so, if you have 20 dogs.
Right.
Well, what about the provision in section 2, subpart C, which I find a little confusing, but apart from that, it provides for a sentence in the county lockup, conviction thereof to be sentenced to 30 days imprisonment or pay a fine.
Yeah, I saw a couple of police state comments over that.
I mean, do we need
I think that was in there,
Well,
and then that was always in there.
Yeah, that was our ordinance, that's the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
pre-existing.
well, it's just sometimes upon reflection, you revisit something.
That's a maximum.
That's pretty common
penalty.
language for like a summary offense type. It's either
Yeah.
an either or instance. And in our modern day, we know it usually means the fine.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I certainly see the need for something to happen
Well, the
due
magic,
to the very few people who completely disregard everything. I have no problems with that. But it seems like a very steep escalation. If we cut that escalation in half, $50 instead of $100, and if we gave it some sort of a reset button, you know, a year from the last offense,
So we've heard
or 2 years.
We've heard Steve's comments on this. So I need to know if we are going forward with this as it is, or if we want to change it.
I feel that we should go forward with it as it is.
Okay? I need 4 nods to go forward with it as it is.
I agree. We heard some real horror stories, and we had to do
I
something.
agree.
Okay? All right?
That's 3, I agree as well.
Thinking back on
Is
those
that 4?
people that came in.
Yep,
Okay.
4 people agree to go against 85% of the people.
What is the,
On your website.
You're right, who have discussed this.
Okay. All right.
What is the, excuse me, just real quick.
Yes.
That's subpart C. I guess that's the original code. If I had it in front of me, that would,
Right.
that C would be part, but that's C. Okay, thanks.
Number 3 on the next page is that we're appointing a personnel board member. So we've had 1 person apply for that, and if we feel like that person is qualified, we can have that person. If the chair of the personnel board, that's Carolyn, I think, I'm sure she'll feel he's qualified, but if we felt like he was not qualified, we could always just leave that open and interview, extend that interview. Just to let people know what kind of way it can be done if we got someone we didn't like. He seemed wonderful, don't misread any of that.
Tremendous experience.
Public Works, moved toward the contract for the Insight piping contract, in the amount of $47,035 as per our CoStar vendor. Move to adopt resolution for the multimodal transportation funds for the Wexford Flats. Does everybody remember what that is? Do we need a little dig on that, or do we remember what that is? Okay, okay. All right, new business, public comment, and adjournment. Okay, all right, done with that. Okay, liaison, boards and commissions, if you've submitted your written report, if you have something to add, you can, otherwise we have that and have read that. Greg, planning.
Yeah, planning commission, I mean, they've already submitted their minutes, which said, they essentially tabled the project going on Blazer. So it's up for a vote. The next planning commission meeting, I think, is September 3rd. So that's takes care of that. They tabled it for some technical reasons.
Wait for a couple reports to come back, I think.
Yeah, right.
Zoning hearing board?
The zoning hearing board has 2 cases, one a .7 foot variance and another 7-foot variance by the Roche College to, for something, but it's small stuff.
Yeah, okay,
That's it.
okay. The Sanitary Authority, good minutes as always.
Madam President, just one item that wasn't fully covered in those minutes I'd like to bring up to the council. The Stonebrook Village area, the Whitmer Run that feeds into Lowry's Run down there, the Sewer Authority 3 weeks ago, with the help of Representative Terzai's office, received an emergency permit from DEP, and that was to go in and stabilize and protect an exposed 18-inch trunk sewer that was facing potential structural failure due to washout, and that was handled. And there's another one about 500 feet below that they're working on now, but we're working in conjunction with the town manager. Grimm, if you have anything to add, that concludes my report.
And we've had PVE out to take a look at the situation to see if the bank stabilization would qualify for grant funding through some programs that may be available, that either the town or the authority could apply for. I've also had the Allegheny Watershed Alliance out, since it's only owned by one property owner, it would be a potential project area for them to do a stream bank restoration project. So they've looked at it as a possible candidate for a project out this way. I've not heard anything more, but at this point, I think we're doing what we can to help them, knowing it's, private property.
Working together. One other item, Madam President, the authority did submit a $280,000 Grow Greener grant application for the repairs to Lower Lowry's Run line.
I saw that, that looks good. Ambulance Authority?
Ambulance Authority, I did submit a brief written report. I'd just like to point out, for benefit of the public, there is a special budget meeting scheduled for the 28th of August to discuss the 2020 budget there, and the next regular board meeting there is set for September 16th.
Okay.
Thank you.
And of course, all those meetings are open to the public. Library?
I just wanted to, along with any minutes, to remind everyone that this Saturday, the library will be having, it's called Chick on the Street, and it's a mobile fashion event. So that'll be Saturday. Also, if you have not had the opportunity to go up by the library recently, it might be a nice thing for you to go by. The Learning Garden is moving along very quickly. The pavilion is up. Well, they're calling it a shed, but it's like a building where they're storing things, but they're moving along very nicely, and they're selling bricks, like as we are for the Heritage Center.
I've seen that all stripped out. They have not started to put any plants or any dirt in yet?
No.
Back in?
No.
Because
At least not the last time I was there. I was there.
at the last COG meeting, they did mention that there was leftover compost still over at the sanitary, at the maze management site.
Okay, I mentioned it too.
That leaf mulch, which,
Okay.
maybe Mark Sabina could bring a triaxle or two over, that makes excellent,
Good idea.
excellent
Okay.
base.
I will mention it to her.
It's gold.
Okay, all right. That's all I have.
North Hill Council of Governments?
Same stuff, as usual, the cable and recyclables. The only thing, and it's not really part of what we talked about as far as the actual agenda up there, but they do seem to feel that there's a possibility that this recyclable thing, by the time our contract ends, may work itself out just through other places, other countries taking up the slack for China.
Perfect.
I'm not guaranteeing that, it's just discussion that was talked. So if in 2 years it doesn't happen, don't blame me.
Well, lots of times, that's when industries pop up,
Right,
Okay. Joint Redford?
nothing.
Okay. MIDA?
Nothing?
Volunteer Firefighter Steering Committee? Anything, Joanne?
No.
Okay.
They meet in 2 weeks, I believe.
Yes.
Right.
meeting
Okay.
coming up, early September.
Okay. North Pittsburgh Community Development Corporation, Bill? McKim?
Nothing.
Heritage Center?
I just wanted to mention that on Community Day, we're planning 1 to 5, it will be open, and there'll be several activities honoring Mr. Bullock. There will also be his friend, Mr. Price, will have a pottery demonstration, and there will also be a ceremony for Joe to take place at 3 o'clock. After that, there'll be performance of Irish music, and that's all going on Community Day.
Okay. Please check the websites. There are a lot of nice programs that are actually coming through.
Coming up,
the
right.
the Heritage Center. They look very interesting. Okay, that's all on our website. Community Day Committee? Joanne?
We're moving along, we're putting the book together.
Okay.
We will have a dedication in there for Joe Bullock. So in the reservations for booths, food, we're looking for food trucks
Okay.
more.
Okay.
But it's moving along.
All right. So anyone who knows some food trucks,
Oh,
please.
yes, please let me know.
Let the committee know. Anything else that you're in need of that you can kind of put a shout out for today?
Not that I'm
That's
aware
it?
of.
Okay.
We have a
People do
meeting
attend.
tomorrow.
People, they'll come.
As an
We
observer,
have a meeting tomorrow.
as an observer, Joanne would know the names of all the people, but I know my wife and who's on this committee, and some of the other ladies, I think Mrs. Jerry's wife,
Hoffman. Yeah.
Hoffman. They spend a lot of time over the year going out and buying things at the dollar store, and not a high value thing, but all kind of stuff that ends up in my dining room, and then I eventually bring it down here. But they do a lot of work.
They work throughout the year.
You've helped carry some of that stuff.
I've helped carry some.
Right.
Okay. Is that all?
Yeah, that's
That
all I
is.
have, yeah, I just
Okay.
put a plug in for the girls.
Okay.
Thank
EAC, I want to put a plug in for the Tick Talk, which is this Wednesday. That's August 21st, 6:30 to 7:30 here. It's time for a Tick Talk.
TikTok.
Right here in this building over here. We hope there's a lot of misinformation about ticks and Lyme
In this
disease.
building over here?
In this building right here, in this
In
room
this
right here,
room
in the
right here,
powers,
okay.
in the powers room.
Yeah,
In
the
this
way you
building,
said it,
in
it
that
sounded like
building.
there was a building over there that I wasn't
The
aware
one
of.
the one we're building between now and Wednesday, we're gonna have it there. Anyway, a lot of misinformation out there. There'll be tick experts. So you have any good questions, please come and attend. There are 3 project forms that you all had in your folder, and this isn't something we have to vote on. This, if you have any questions, I'll name them if you have any questions about it, but otherwise, just a nod. We decided we didn't have to vote on these. These are just some projects. The EAC, this was part of the Tick Information Education Series, but we'd like to start a environmental sustainability speaker series. We're gonna have speakers to come in periodically and give free talks to the community. Is everybody good with that?
I like that.
No problem, okay, good. If you have some ideas of speakers or some ideas of subjects, please, you can let me know or John Brajowski know. Bill, you have something that's getting ready to be said, I can
Yeah, I was
tell.
just, you read my mind.
I can.
Where is it on there, Kim, the
It is
story
down,
about the ticks and
It's,
that was a bonus, like Joan gave her
right,
little
she gave
bonus
a little
about
note
chicks.
right here,
Chicks on
Oh,
the
but it
street.
doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist in there, okay.
It's on
I
it's
got
on
you.
this paper.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, that's
It's
a
on her
very,
private book.
My private
I
book.
think I read in the newspaper that ticks are a particular problem this year, so it's,
They've been a problem.
Right.
yeah. yeah.
Every year they get worse.
Seems like it, okay. The next one is, we did a tree canopy inventory, and we're waiting to get all the results on that, and the town property was one of the ones that we did. So what we thought was, because they're trying to show the value of trees, so they take a tree, they say this is whatever kind of tree, this is the size of this tree, and they know how to quantify and qualify how much CO2 it takes out, how much storm water it remediates, all these really cool numbers. So this doesn't cost anybody anything, that we are gonna make the signs, but we wanted to do 3 different trees on Community Day, in places that were conspicuous, to put the sign down, kind of going, this is the value of this tree. What do you think about that?
I think that's an excellent idea. Are those the people that, who does that?
The EACs, oh, who does
Yeah, I
the,
mean, some professionals?
tree revitalized, yes. Good, Steve, thanks.
Tree what?
Tree vitalized.
I think it's tree.
That's the name of an organization?
It is.
And are they available to come and take a look at your trees that you might own
Utilizing
on your own property?
the tree inventory. There was a website that they sent to us where you could actually put in your own trees, and they would add them to they got this big map of like where all the trees are, so
Yeah.
they can say, Allegheny County has this much remediation in this way. You know, that's why we're doing that tree planting initiative, to get people
Yeah.
to plant more trees. I know Bill has entered some trees on there, I've entered some trees on there, because we get 5 pounds of stormwater remediation. 5 pounds? For each tree we
I have a
plant.
huge tree on my property.
Yeah.
That maybe I should report to them that it's 12 feet in
Oh,
circumference.
Holy
you
cow.
should.
It's a huge tree.
You know what, they
The
might,
arborist tells me it's well over 200 years old.
they might like, honestly, coming and just doing those stats, because it would be a super cool thing. Because they've been putting some landmark like trees
Mm.
on their site, so that's a super idea. Call John
Yeah.
Borjowski
I'll
about
give
that.
him a call.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and that would look great for McCandless too, if a few people put those big beautiful trees on there to show how we value.
It's not as
Yeah,
big as the
our
one
trees.
that got completely creamed down on the, I don't know, got hit by lightning, the one down in the fields by Vincention. There was one of the oldest.
Oh,
Yeah,
I heard
yeah,
about that,
yeah.
but I never went out to
Huge,
see it, yeah.
It was huge. I think it was claimed to be the largest tree in
Yeah.
town.
So is it, you guys don't have any problem with us putting up 3 signs, we'll take them down the end? Okay.
Why take them down?
I
Why
was-
don't leave
I
them?
was gonna
Well, what I was gonna say is because we were just kind of making them ourselves with like wire and temporary
Oh,
signage, that if it went over really big and people really liked it, you know, we don't have a budget. If you really think it's nice when you see them on Community Day, then maybe council can put a little money in the budget to put some real signs there that stay all the time. See what you think about it, see if you like the information. I think it would be awesome to do that, but we didn't have time to get that done, we just came up with this idea. And so we thought, well, we'll put some temporary signs out there, and maybe people will like it, and then maybe it won't be those trees, maybe we'll decide to put them on different trees in a different place, you know, I don't know.
Bill Street.
Or how about some of our parks too? Couldn't we do that? Like
We can,
Wall Park or
Mhm.
if everybody supports putting it in the budget, I think that would be an awesome thing, along the trail.
Right,
Because people
right,
don't realize the value, the monetary value of
And it-
trees.
And it meets the town's requirements for education under the MS4 program. So
that'd
there's,
be great, yeah.
there's a lot of value to
Right.
doing something.
We'll look along Vestal Park too. That's, there are trees all over the place there.
Right, exactly. Okay, all right, so I'm taking that as a positive nod. The other thing is, Mark Sabina has these stickers that are supposed to go on the stormwater catch basin places, and you gotta put the special kind of gel on there and slap them on there. And so he came to, the EAC and said, hey, do you guys wanna put these stickers on? This sounds like an EAC project, as opposed to paying Public Works to do it. And we said, sure, we'll do it. Doesn't cost the town anything. He's got the stickers, he's got the goo, and you gotta teach us how to put them on and tell us where to put them, you know. And, so it's another educational,
Yeah.
it's another educational thing, so that people know, what is this? Where does this go? And what is this about? The reminder. Okay, do we like it?
Yep.
Okay, TikTok. Personnel board?
Personnel board met this evening, had a discussion regarding selection criteria and the process that, maybe some process changes that they'd like to use for the next round of testing and interviewing police candidates. That they're going to continue to work on that to make some recommendations to the council moving forward. So they didn't want to finalize anything until they had their new member in place and get some feedback from whoever was selected. But there was a lot of good discussion tonight, and they will be meeting again on September 23rd.
Mr. Shipley would
He will-
probably come up with some great ideas because of his past position.
No doubt.
Probably.
Any thoughts that you folks have, get them to me, and I'll incorporate those, we'll discuss those with the personnel.
And on our executive session too, we want to discuss a police candidate also.
We're planning to
Did
do an
you-
interview the same night at 6.
Okay.
Another
Okay.
police officer interview?
Of
We
the-
needed, because.
We
the-
needed two, right?
Because the one was
Right, but I thought we had
disqualified.
decided that if we didn't get them, that we were not going to continue with this list, and
That's what I thought too.
eventually we're just, beating this list into the ground?
I thought we were gonna stay with the list myself.
I didn't-
Yes,
I
sir.
thought we had decided the last two candidates we offered were done, and we were getting a new list. I'm positive we decided that.
Nope, absolutely not, I never agreed.
So
to
how
that.
long are we going to leave this list in place? It's been recommended that we stop using it, 3 officers ago?
Hire the 2 officers that we need to expeditiously hire because school's starting back. and we're
So we're
losing
just gonna
SRO
keep the list
officers.
in
Can we,
perpetuity, I
take
guess?
this one off the list and then with these new standards, start another one?
I think that,
What do you
Maybe
think about
starting a
that?
list.
Yes, because our personnel, board has some new ideas, and the chief has actually expressed this, that there are some things that he would like to add, some changes that he would make in the interview process and how these officers are evaluated. I don't know what all those are, but, so they were talking about changing some things about how that's done. I think that's what we were
Yes.
talking about with the personnel board. So, it seems to me, because we'll be up to snuff with this next person,
Mhm.
that would give us a little time to get the new stuff in place. We can start another list, and then as people are retiring, whatever, as soon as, then we can interview as we need to fill in those. What do you all think about that?
I think the list's already been used up, but
What we're finding a compromise right now, because everyone doesn't think that, so let's see if we can find a
Who
compromise.
is still on the list? Is there,
We're not
Yeah,
gonna
we
say
can't-
that.
we
We're
can't
not-
talk
can't
about
say
that
names,
here.
but we.
but there are people that are still on the list, right?
I would, yes, and I
there
would
there were
like
names
to-
that the council was given when we did the other 3 interviews.
Okay.
And I would like to proceed.
Well, couldn't we carry those names over that are still on the list?
We
on a
need
new
to-
list?
We need to work off
They would
this
have to
list to
reapply.
conclude this hiring process. We were throwing a curve, and I think we should just continue and hire.
I thought that's what
select
we
another
had decided.
officer if we
Oh,
find
yeah,
one
I thought that was
acceptable.
what
we had a
Immediately.
list that had the best candidates from the top down, and we've worked from the top down, and now we're 16 deep, so we're 15th or 16th best candidate down,
Well, I think that at
and
least,
we're just gonna continue to use the list.
I think there's 4 of us.
That's,
We're under the
not
impression
your
that we had,
characterization. These are all qualified
Yeah.
officers.
that's your recollection too, right? And I think you just said,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Certainly
we ought to
it
go
is.
with the list we got and
Yes.
get it done.
Let's get it
So, okay, let me make sure. So this next person that we interview, well, we're already,
Yeah, say it
We've
on camera
already-
so that we know this the next time, when they change their mind next week.
so the person who we're interviewing next weekend, next Monday, is off of the old list.
Mhm.
So that's what everybody, that's what not everybody, but this is what you're saying, you want to use that list. So we agree that we'll be up to full staff.
Compliment.
Full complement, and then that gives our personnel board and the chief time to revamp things.
Right.
Agreed.
Right.
Okay,
That's- I
all
agree
right, so
with
that's
that.
what we're gonna
Yes,
do?
Yeah.
I
And
agree
then
with
we
that.
can invite these officers who are on the list now to reapply,
Right.
but they would be brought in with other new officers applying, is that what we're saying?
So they would have to be re-interviewed.
They haven't been interviewed.
Anybody that had not been interviewed would be invited to reapply,
reapply.
retest.
Gotcha, okay.
Because they might move up higher on the list, we
Right.
don't know.
So the ones that have been interviewed are off?
They can reapply.
Just the only one who hasn't been interviewed.
During this period of time, those ones that you have interviewed are still eligible. Once we make the selection of this last officer, and we're full
No, we've
complement,
already,
we
we're gonna
will
be
not
already chosen one.
select any more
No,
from
but
the
then-
existing
I-
list.
Between 2, yes.
And what
And-
if something
and-
happens again where they don't pass a,
And if this
Physical.
officer does not meet the standards, then we can have another discussion if we want to go down that list further, or if we want to wait for another one to be started. My feeling is that you're gonna still wanna pull from the old list because of the timing, because it does take time to apply and put these standards in place.
Yes.
But we can think about that and just see how this goes.
Right.
And hopefully we'll be successful and we can, move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll just have that in people's minds, so we know where we're going. Okay? Junior council member report. Did you
I did submit one, so I do have to admit that you guys beat me to the punch to the, my thing. I never thought government moving too fast would be an issue. But-
Wait a second. Do we need to re-vote on our junior council member? Jeez Louise.
But my report this month was on the comprehensive plan, and I kind of echoed what Councilman Kirk said, that language needed to be added to clarify what the council wanted to come out of the adoption of the comprehensive plan. And I also echoed the fact that things like flooding and other issues in the town need to be added to the comprehensive plan, because the word comprehensive means encompassing, and so all the issues of the town I felt should be included in the plan. But a lot of the points that I raised in my report were brought up tonight and solved, so.
Great minds think alike.
I'd like to compliment you, obviously you did a lot of work. Good
Thank
for
you.
you.
We're not really gonna throw you out.
We won't let her do that.
Thank you.
I can't, I don't have the authority. The president, my report and correspondence, a couple things that I'd like to kind of bounce off of, kind of get your feel for, and that is, there has been a lot of changing in legislature and rules, and from Allegheny County to our neighbors with fracking. And so I was thinking about charging our attorneys with kind of looking at our old, because they're old, it's like from the 70s, I think. And having maybe our attorneys look at the old and make sure that we're up to date, make sure it says what we want it to say, so we don't get caught in a situation where things are happening and it's not what we wanted. So if you all think that's okay, then I'd like to charge our attorneys to kind of look at that. Apparently, like I said, some of our neighbors have adopted new resolutions, so maybe we can share theirs.
Have we responded at all to that letter that we received a couple weeks ago?
I think that would kind of go in with what they find, to see if that even exists, to see if that's a good idea, to see if we have other friends who are interested in doing that with us. I think that would kind of go in. I don't think we can address that when we don't even know what our stuff says.
So the lawyers would check.
Oh, that's what I'd like them to do, kind of look at it and then give us some drafts or some ideas on changes that maybe need to be made.
Madam President, I'd like to look at our current ordinance before charging the attorneys to review it. I like to review it myself first and see what it says.
Well,
You
you
can
can
do that as
certainly,
much as you
you
want.
can certainly read it,
Before we
but
charge them to.
Why?
Before we start spending money to look at it.
it,
I think we should all do that.
don't jump the gun, don't get started on something before we look at it.
Well, our understanding, because I have just happened to have looked at your oil and gas ordinance recently.
Oh, okay.
I think respectfully, it is a little bit more, it's considered one of our more modern clients' ordinances. I don't think it's from the 1970s.
oh, I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
I thought it was something like that.
You are leaps and bounds ahead of some of our other communities already, but we have assisted some other clients in updating ordinances with even more protective provisions, if that's something that you would be interested in, and things that have been reflected in case law and in the Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Act. So we would be happy to.
I'm concerned about the C3,
C2.
the C2 allowing drilling in C2. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about construction noise from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I think that's way too much. That's in the ordinance. There's also that talks about distance from the well. I think it would be, I like putting it from the edge of the pad instead of the well for distance on things. You know, those are just some of the things that I came up with that, you know, in reading it, that I wouldn't like. There's also no minimum size that a well can go on. And when I was in another place, we put together we offered a template for the resolution for council to look at, and some of the things that we put on there was about noise, about how long things could, day and night. Operation, that's hours of operation, during the construction phase as well as operation. It also isn't addressed, some fracking facilities want to house workers on site. I don't know that we want that in small housing kinds of things. So there are quite a few things that, while we may be modern, like I said, are not addressed. Like I said, like the size, how much acreage do you need, how close will you let that, what the setbacks are.
Yeah, I can't recall where distance were measured from. We've some.
It's
From like the
site.
center
It
of
said
the well site as opposed
it didn't
to the
say
pad.
center, but it said well site. But I
Okay.
thought pad might be better. But those are just some of the things I saw that I thought could be improved myself, you know, personally. And, you know, Bill, if you look at it, and if you have, or anybody look at it, and you have some ideas, or I'm concerned about this, you know, we can shoot them over, and then they can bring them all back, and then we'll sort through them like we do everything else.
Well,
I think that's pretty reasonable. Pardon me, Bill, I'll just be real quick. I agree with you. I think that the council ought to have in their hands, I know we've had this before, the ordinance in question, look at it, and then whatever ideas flow from that, those can be suggested to council. And I think that's perhaps a more organized way of getting at what our concerns would be.
I think the law is so complex now. Isn't it the Robinson Township case? Is that,
Yes.
yeah. And
That was one of the big cases.
Yeah, and it shoots down some of the current, most recent one, I think 2012 legislation. And so it's really too complex, I think, for us.
For us, exactly.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts. See what the professionals
Well-
recommend, and we go from there instead of us deciding what we're going to recommend to the professionals.
I think it's worthwhile. Of course, I have a great respect for lawyers, as you can imagine. I'm sure Greg shares that. But I think it's pretty hard to object. I mean, to having counsel review what the words say, not to say that they're going to substitute their judgment ultimately for educated counsel, but I think I would feel more comfortable getting a chance to take a good look at it and promptly, I don't mean to have this thing drag on, but and then being able to make some intelligent comments on it. I don't think you have to be a lawyer to make comments on a piece of legislation.
Bill, you agree with me, I mean, we agree. I'd
Yeah,
like to deliberate this in a work session and talk about the current ordinance and come to a consensus that yes, we should have council review it as opposed to just dropping it out of the blue and saying, let's hire
I think
lawyers.
that's what I
And
think.
that wasn't the intent here, I understand, but I feel like I haven't had a chance to properly deliberate the current ordinance to direct that spending at this point, that's all.
And
I don't disagree with some of the things you've said,
I
but.
think it's about 4 pages. You can digest.
Yeah, it won't be, yeah, exactly, and we
And-
can do that at a work session.
And I'd like us for decide too, does it want to come out of planning? You know, do they want to take a crack at it and then send it up? So, I mean, this is the planning
We're starting
session
the
for the
concept,
planning,
we're
yeah.
starting the discussion.
So.
The planning commission, you mean?
Yeah, maybe they want to start it, you know what I mean? I don't know, do we want to start it? Do we want to give them a crack at it first and then come to
No,
here?
I think that we'd be better.
Do you? Okay,
Yeah. I
okay,
do.
okay, all right, so we'll take a look at it and then put our notes together and then start, maybe come back on, in September and talk about it and see what we think.
At the first meeting?
I
or
think
in
it would
September?
probably have to be at the first meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Under what, zoning or what?
Probably
So you send
zoning.
us copies,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Bob?
Mr. Grimm, as I was just asking, can you send us a
Excuse
copy
me,
of the
Mr.
current?
Grimm.
Or Manager Grimm,
No, I said Bob. I said I
Oh,
should
Bob.
have said
That's
Mr.
pretty
Grimm.
familiar, isn't it?
Sorry.
The,
Well, I
It's
think I
okay, I
know.
answered to either.
I think I know.
Anyway,
So we'll wait.
Distribute
until
copies
Right,
of
you
the
guys have
ordinance
your
in place.
discussion.
And that sounds, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. I just kinda wanna get things, started a little bit. So, that's on 1341, and, there's also some on 7:30, 05, 01, and 07.
That's a noise.
7:05.
Yeah, that's the noise part. And that's the problem with some of these ordinances, if they're not all in one place. There's a
Right.
piece of it over here, and a piece of it over here, and a piece of it over
Well,
here.
noise isn't even in the zoning, is it?
It is about drilling.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it is.
They
Okay.
refer to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's where they get the six a.m. because I know when
That
you're.
is where it is.
Yeah, I know when you get to, if you're constructing anything, you can, an outside contractor can start at 6 a.m.
But going from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. seems like a
Well,
little
yeah,
much.
that's what this, yeah.
It seems excessive to me. I would not like that. The other thing too that I want to kind of throw off council and see what they think of is maybe a conflict of interest statement. Something about, I've had some complaints of people that have said that they were worried that certain people were applying for committees for personal gain. And so there are some resolutions, statutes in place for Allegheny County. We don't have any for our town. So I thought maybe that was something too that maybe we could
Well,
think about.
yeah, but isn't there a state law about, state law has to be considered too?
Oh, yeah, it takes precedence over everything.
Yeah.
We'd have to, I don't know what all of that says, but I just thought that Ross passed one about a year ago. And I just thought that might be something that we want to look at. Anything that,
People who shouldn't be profiting
right.
if they're making the decisions
I
of
was gonna
who's
bring
going to
up that,
profit.
after you were finished, I was going to bring that up about that exercise place that we're gonna put up there, that I think
Yes.
we should have something in there that says it's for the residents, not for businesses to use.
Well, if we have a conflict of interest, no one could financially gain.
Okay, well.
Okay,
that-
would
good
financial
point.
gain, because if we get a sponsor there that pays for the whole thing, if UPMC pays to sponsor the whole thing, and they wanna have something down there, we may have to let them have something down there. You know what I
Right,
mean?
but
I mean,
we've
we'd
had
have to
people-
see- We'd have to see about that, we'd have to find out what all the stipulation was, I don't know, if we had a big sponsor. But I'm just saying, this would be about council members, this would be about committee members, board members. And I'm not saying any of that is even going on, but I think having something like this in place shows good intent. And, every person that comes here, we ask, do you have a conflict of interest? Maybe we shouldn't have to ask them, and they're gonna say no, or maybe we should have some guidelines as to what a conflict of interest is.
Well, we have
So
someone
can
running for town
say-
council who's
So
planning on
we
using
can
that.
say that, no, there is a conflict, we're very sorry. If you'd like to apply for another board, we would love for you to, but there is a conflict here. But, so we don't have any standards for that.
Yeah, you,
Ms. Solicitor.
already covered by the state Public Employees and Officials Ethics Act, that's when you all
Right.
file the statement of financial interest. and that
exactly, I
sort
was just
of
gonna
thing.
say that, we already have, at least from the financial side of the world,
Right.
we file something that in general identifies where your sources of income are,
Right.
and then you can evaluate whether that gives rise to any,
Right, but if there's a
conflict.
council person who
there's many other
runs,
forms.
who's using this new exercise facility to finance her business, which we've already gotten one, who is running, who has said that they wanted to do that. Or if there's, someone who's on a committee who owns one of the bigger businesses that we pay for, who's deciding who is going to be elected or put in place in certain other committees, that certainly seems like a real strong conflict of interest. And I can think of two people right off the bat that it's very questionable whether they should be where they're at.
And I'm not implying that I agree with what Steve's saying as far as that these people have these intentions. I do not know people's intentions. But I think having something in place would
We know the
look
ones who
good
set
and
them
look,
in a
I'm
public
not gonna
meeting.
talk about this. I'm saying that it seems like a good thing to have in place, to be above reproach, and to know, we don't have to ask someone if we think they have a conflict. We would have criteria about what a
Well,
conflict was.
there are many, my legal background, I know because I had to deal with it for 35, 40 years. The rules of professional conduct have fairly detailed provisions that deal with conflicts of interest and spell it out. Now, that was good enough for the bar. I don't know whether that's good enough for, you know, for the non-lawyers of the world. But there must be, I assume other professional groups, engineers or whatever, must have, I mean, do you think the conflict of interest rules in the bar would be a good starting place for?
Yeah, that, or CPAs, yeah.
Or CPAs, they must have, I don't know what CPAs have, but they must have the same thing.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
The Allegheny County one is really long, and there are a lot of things in there that don't even remotely relate to us. So that's the reason I thought if we had something that we cut down a little bit, that applied specifically here, that would be a little more digestible
Are you
than,
thinking like a questionnaire or
I'm thinking like a resolution
Right.
of the town in its desire to be transparent and whatever, that we wish to invite citizens with intentions to serve the community with no self-serving, I don't know, whatever the words would be, but something like that. I don't want these committees for people to think these are stepping off points for financial gain. I want them to be true community service, and however we can, well, I mean, what do you all think about that? Do you like this idea at all, or?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I think having provisions on conflicts of interest, including conflict of interest arising out of the instances that was just discussed here without reference to any person.
Oh, yeah, we
But
shouldn't
clearly-
reference
Clearly,
people.
we have to, I think.
Or activity.
One of the ground rules.
Yeah. Well, we should see what we have. I mean, we know we have a state law conflict of interest, and there's some others. So let's see what we have and then go from there.
Is everybody okay with that?
Take it under advice of counsel, sure.
Okay.
take a look?
All
Yeah,
right.
and we'll survey. I know you mentioned Ross.
Yeah.
Did you happen to see anywhere else that had one? I can't recall if
I can't recall,
Okay.
but I just know theirs was recent,
Mhm.
and so I thought maybe, and we may not wanna do what they did, but
Sure.
it may be just
Yeah,
a jumping off
just for
point.
an idea.
Okay. Thank you all. That's all that I have. Town managers meeting,
Just
reporting,
few
sorry.
quick highlights. Regarding the Wexford Flats project, it's been on the manager's report for months. We're still waiting on a final invoice from PennDOT for the sidewalk portion of the work that was done in the Wexford Flats project. Because I misunderstood some things that had been discussed previously, I wasn't entirely sure that the council had made any kind of a determination regarding the sidewalk assessment, the 80-20 split, or the property owners paying the local share of that project cost. I went back to Toby's prior reports, and it was clear that council had made that determination in the past, so I'm amending my report accordingly.
So what is the determination?
The council determined that when the project went forward, the town should assess property owners for the 20% local share. It would be based on footage.
Now, does that include I believe it's only one, but it might be two houses for this new sidewalk that we're considering putting in?
That would be a determination
This
of
is,
the council. I think,
this
I
is
think it would
the
dip-
old sidewalk that's up there. that we're talking
I'm
about.
talking about, yeah, I understand that he's talking about the old one. But
I
I'm asking if
think
it's
it would
going to
depend
continue
on
for-
how much local money would be put in. If it was 100% grant money, you wouldn't necessarily have to assess. But if there's local money,
Right.
a match or something, you may want to assess like you did in the past.
We'd have to just look at it and see what it looked like, I guess.
See what the numbers look like when the project was undertaken. But I just wanted to clear that confusion.
Did we are we putting in a sidewalk where a private owner will?
This is sidewalk that had already been done.
This is Wexford Flats.
Wexford Flats.
Oh,
This is,
okay.
this one's been there all
What
this
he's talking
time.
about is,
Yeah.
right,
PennDOT has
Yeah.
not sent us a bill.
right, we've been hearing this exact same report
For
since I got on council
years,
3
yeah,
years ago.
years,
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I actually just changed the wording. So
Well,
if
but
anyone knows-
it's still,
And-
we're
and-
waiting on
and some-
PennDOT.
And somebody
We're
did.
waiting on PennDOT to tell us, to give us
Yeah, yeah,
No.
every single time.
yeah,
Yep.
well,
Um, what's their problem? Do we have any idea why they,
PennDOT.
most people want money from you.
I-
They're not-
I don't know. Look how long it's taken for the 19 intersection. How long have we been waiting for that bill? I don't know.
As I mentioned to you previously, the stream bank restoration along Highland Road, there was some damage done during this May storm. Contractors are now going to move forward on that project. We finally got pricing and they're moving forward on that.
They have that road so blocked, it looks like the turnpike.
Yes. And I was just gonna mention, the county started work on their portion of Highland Road sewer. There's an extensive detour in place now evidently. So that work will continue. The last thing that I had, you all received drafts of the sustainability plan that our intern Macy did. If you have any suggested changes to that or items that you'd like to see added to what she put together, please get them to John or to me and we'll update accordingly. That completes my report.
Okay.
I have a question on your report, if I may. The very last item, could you expand upon that a little bit? You wanted to involve people other than John Bajarski in the.
In reading through the comprehensive plan draft and reading through the sustainability plan, there's a lot of references to public engagement. And the town has done a great job of putting information out. I'd like to look and, really what I'd like to do is, I'm gonna start looking at the skill level that we have in other members of the staff. We have another person working for us as a communications degree. There's no reason not to use her skills right along with John's.
Who was that person?
Great idea.
Sandy Bauer,
Okay.
who works for Bruce.
Right, I know who she is.
There's no reason not to use her skills in order to enhance our communication efforts and our outreach to the public.
So they would work together, not giving it to her completely.
Correct. Yeah, John would still be the lead on that and do everything, but Sandy has skills with website design, with.
She's a communication
Yeah,
major, I
she's a
think.
communication major, so why
She'd be a good
shouldn't we
choice to
take?
help out.
You're looking for her and perhaps others to articulate things that be put on the web or through on
Well,
Facebook or something? Or just-
Even
just
ideas
whatever.
of how we can truly engage the public.
Okay, but the idea is engaging the public, coming from us to the public,
Well,
suggesting,
and there may be some means of feedback from the public.
soliciting input from the public, I
Yes.
guess is what that means to me.
Yeah, we have a lot of input, the public's involved, we have a lot of committee involvement and things like that, but, you know, are there
Yeah.
other ways that we can
Okay.
have the citizens involved in the town?
So any suggestions or ideas that anybody has, please shoot them over. Things that you'd like to see better. Anything else?
Nothing else?
Okay. We have the town attorney's report. We'll be in executive session next meeting to go over that settlement. So I guess if you have any questions about anything confidential, we can ask it at that time.
Is there any question on the council's report, is that inherently confidential? Because I did have a question, and I don't think it was too confidential. Are those confidential, counsel?
I think everything on there was related to litigation, so I would say yes.
So if I have a question about number I, A, I shouldn't ask it. It's maybe,
Just wait till next.
yeah, is that what you?
What is I?
Pardon me?
No, I mean,
Yeah, don't ask him that.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. Okay, anything else for our solicitor? Public comment on any of the agenda items? Anyone have any comment? Oh, going once? Going twice?
Sold.
The agenda meeting is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay, third,
Okay,
fourth,
Steve.
meeting adjourned.
He-
Thank
oh,
you.
he did something there.